grab a piece of paper with a standard 2D graph drawn on it. Now, in your mind, pinch that curve and spin it in midair, a full 360 degrees around an axis. Suddenly, that flat, two-dimensional line sweeps through space and creates a solid 3D object.
But here is the real problem. How do you measure the volume of a shape that literally didn't exist a second ago? We need a foolproof way to measure these spun volumes, and doing it efficiently requires a clever technique. That technique is called the method of cylindrical shells. By the end of this lecture, you're going to deeply understand this concept. You'll know exactly how to unroll the mathematical formula behind it, and most importantly, you'll be able to apply it effortlessly to real examples without second-guessing your setup. Let's dive right into section 1, the cylindrical shell concept. To truly wrap our heads around this, we have to temporarily put aside the intimidating formal math definitions. Instead, let's look at a highly visual, tactile analogy. Think of our mathematical shell just like the cardboard tube inside a roll of paper towels. If you want to know how much physical material is making up that tube, you can perform a simple magic trick. Take a pair of scissors, make a single vertical cut right down the side, and open it up to lay it completely flat. What do you have? A flat rectangular plate. Now, finding the volume reduces to basic middle school geometry. Volume simply equals length times width times thickness. Moving on to section 2, unrolling the math formula. Now that the physical idea is clear, let's unroll the equation and map that flat plate to our formal mathematical variables. Notice how perfectly the geometry translates here? The total width of our unrolled plate used to be the circular edge of the cylinder. That's the circumference, which we write as 2 pi times the radius, or 2 pi x. The height of our flat plate is simply the height of our original function, f of x. And the thickness? That is our infinitely thin slice along the axis, which in calculus we just call dx. Put it all together, and this brilliantly illustrates our core formula for revolving around the y-axis. The volume v equals the integral from a to b of 2 pi x times f of x dx. We're quite literally adding up all those infinitely thin, unrolled flat plates to create the total volume of the solid. Now, I know exactly what you might be thinking. A common student confusion always pops up right here. Wait a second, if we're evolving this shape around the y-axis, why are our variables and our dx all sitting along the x-axis? Okay, wait, this is important. If you're taking notes, write this down. The crucial point here is the perpendicular rule. The method of cylindrical shells integrates perpendicular to the axis of revolution. If you spin your shape around the vertical y-axis, your radius and your thickness are moving horizontally along the x-axis. Therefore, you absolutely must integrate with respect to x. Let's look at section 3, example 1, the basics. We need to make this concrete, so let's walk through a classic textbook example step by step. Imagine the curve y equals 1 over x, bounded between x equals 1 and x equals 3. We want to spin this around the y-axis. Step 1, identify the region and the axis. Since we spin around the y-axis, we use shells and integrate with respect to x. Step 2, plug it right into our formula. We have the integral of 2 pi x times our function 1 over x. Step 3, look how beautifully this simplifies. The x and the 1 over x cancel out perfectly. You're left simply integrating the constant 2 pi. Evaluate that from 1 to 3, and your volume is exactly 4 pi.
Okay, let's do a quick mini quiz to test your attention. Set up the volume for the function f of x equals 2x minus x squared, bounded from 0 to 2, spun around the y-axis. Think about the setup for a second. You should have the integral from 0 to 2 of 2 pi x times the parenthesis 2x minus x squared. The common mistake here? Forgetting to distribute the x into the polynomial before integrating. Distribute it, integrate, and you get a volume of 8 pi over 3.
Next up is section 4, revolving around the x-axis. We have the standard y-axis revolution down cold, so let's complicate things slightly by turning the whole problem on its side.
What if we revolve around the horizontal x-axis instead? Let's connect this back to our perpendicular rule. If the axis of revolution is horizontal, our cuts must be vertical, so we measure the radius and thickness along the y-axis. The formula shifts seamlessly. Volume equals the integral from c to d of 2 pi y times g of y dy. We just swapped our variables.
Moving into section 5, shifting the axis line. Let's look at a more advanced scenario to show just how robust our unwrapping analogy truly is when the rules change slightly. Here is an advanced question that catches people out on exams all the time. What happens to our volume formula if the line of rotation isn't sitting nicely on the y-axis? What if the axis is shifted to the left, say to the vertical line x equals -1?
Let's think back to our physical flat plate. If the rotation line moves further away, does the height of our function change? Nope. Does the dx thickness change? No. The only thing that changes is the circumference because the cylinder is wider. The radius expands. So if we rotate around x equals -1, our radius expression simply changes from x to x plus 1. The rest of the formula stays exactly the same.
And finally, section 6, which method is best? Before we finish, let's summarize the key points with a practical cheat sheet, because when you're solving a real problem on a test, nobody tells you which method to use. Let's contrast our two major calculus tools. Notice the distinct mathematical geometry here. The disk and washer method integrates parallel to the axis of revolution, but the shells method, as we've hammered home today, integrates perpendicular to the axis of revolution. So how do you actually choose? Here's my practical advice. Always sketch the shape first. Look at the bounds. Pick the method that creates the easiest single integral. Avoid any method that forces you to break the region into two separate integrals because the bounding curves shift halfway through. Finally, look at the equation. Is it already written as y equals a function of x? Choose the method that lets you use the equation as is to save yourself from some nasty algebra. I want to end this explainer with a final, provocative thought to prime you for your next practice session. What if the volume you're calculating isn't just under one curve, but is trapped between two curves? Say, bounded on top by the square root of x and on the bottom by 1 over x? Think about our unrolled flat plate. The circumference is the same, the thickness is the same, but the height? The height simply becomes the top curve minus the bottom curve. Keep visualizing those unrolled cylinders, sketch your regions, and